How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And we're going to be discussing her new book, From the Other Room. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's recently published by the
Slate Roof Press.
Slate Roof Press. Let me read a brief introduction to Anna. Who's a longtime Somerville resident. Anna Warrock's publication includes a chapbook Horizon and Smoke and Stone. Her work appeared in the anthology Kiss Me Goodnight, Poems and Stories by Women Who Were Girls Then When Their Mothers Died. Minnesota Book Award finalist, for which she also wrote the introduction, besides appearing in a number of literary and multidiscipline magazines, including Harvard Review, the Madison Review, Phoebe, Poesis, and The Sun. Her poems have been set to music, performed at the Boston Hayden's Planetarium, and permanently installed at the Boston area subway station. She has taught poetry in classes for the elderly, high school students, and adult education, and held seminars on understanding grief and loss through poetry. Her website is www.anna, A-N-N-A-M, Warrock, W-A-R-R-O-C-K, that's all one thing, .com. Okay. So I was going to ask you, Anna. Mm-hmm. Well, first off, you're a long-term Somerville resident. Your husband started the Yellow Moon Press, which I interviewed him some years ago. He had a little storefront down on Somerville Avenue. Mm-hmm. How has it been for a creative person living in Somerville for you all these years? How many years have you lived in Somerville?
A number of years, and a couple of decades, more than that even now.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful place to be because there is so much going on. I fully credit the Somerville Arts Council for initiating a number of programs. There's always been an active writing community here, a number of readings here and in Cambridge, and now Jamaica Plain, Roslindale. There are a number of good reading venues. So it's been really a good place for a writer.
Okay. And then it's always had a history of writing. I know we were discussing Aspect magazine.
Right.
Was it Dark Wolf? Was
Dark Horse,
Dark
actually.
Horse.
Dark
and
Horse, yeah.
You probably were in that.
I was in that, yeah.
So it's a big history of Aspect magazine, of small presses.
There is, and actually Aspect magazine folded, but Zephyr Press, which was an adjunct,
it's still around.
Is very much still around and publishing a lot of work in translation. I
interviewed him some years ago too.
Yeah, Jim Cates. Yeah.
Jim
Cates.
Cates, that's right.
Yeah.
Now, there are poems. The poems are all about commingling of light and shadow, and there is a sort of austerity about the work, of a pervading sense of calmness. Franny Lindsay opined that calmness brings out truth. I mean, what do you have to say to that?
You know, I've been going to a number of poetry readings in the past year or so, and what strikes me is that they're strengthening and uplifting, if you will, simply because a good poem tells the truth. You recognize the truth in a poem that works, and of course we're surrounded by such disarray in the public discourse that searching for the right word, searching for balance and emotion brings out truth. And indeed, the calmness that Franny Lindsay talks about is a grounding, it seems to me, in the truths that good poetry produces, both for the writer and for the listener.
And for a lot of that to thrive is sort of a sense of calmness.
Yeah.
How about hip hop and rap poetry?
Well, that serves a different audience, but it is the energy. Again, if the energy is true, it carries the truth of the work.
Okay. And so when you're reading something,
yes,
and the truth hits you, what do you say?
What do I say?
What do you say to yourself?
I'm not sure I say anything.
Or say to yourself.
I just feel
grounded.
I feel like, sometimes when you're at a poetry reading and people are listening, and there's that at the end of and if you internalize that, instead of making a sound at the end of a reading, if you internalize it, then that's that grounding, it seems to me. That's that moment when the world in the poem comes together, when a truth in the poem is spoken. So
okay. Now, one of the poems, the salmon go all the way upstream. You have the salmon go upstream, leave their eggs, their sperm, and then die. Death and birth and it's coexisting. And yet, the tragedy has a great beauty to it. I mean, maybe you can expand on that when you were thinking about it.
Well,
it's a tragedy that, it's giving birth, they die. But then again, there's a certain sense of beauty.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a tragedy.
Yeah.
We are part of this cycle of life and death. I mean, we can't
Well,
avoid
if it happened to people, it would be a tragedy, wouldn't it?
Oh, it happens to people all the time.
That's what I'm saying. No, I know that. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
But if it happens to people, it is a tragedy.
Well, yes, it is. I mean, obviously, we are of a different species than salmon in the sense that we have lives, and lives can be cut short at any time, which is, of course, the tragedy. But I think, and in fact, it's very interesting that now there's quite a lot of discussion about death and dying and a good death and where to be buried, and even under circumstances of illness, how to treat dying as part of a human and a cycle of life. We're just surrounded by it. We participate in it. We participate in it by cutting down trees to make shelter. Is that a bad thing? Well, no. It's simply part of what we do. And
we tend in Western society to compartmentalize.
That's true, or compensate, or say, this is good and this is bad. And I think, again, poetry can help even that sense out. So for example, you're right, it may be that human beings, there is a tragedy around the death of human beings, but that the salmon are part of this cycle can illustrate to us that we are part of the cycle of this life and death.
It gets down to the
escapes.
Primal and
and
all the facades that we might have as humans, because we carry all this stuff with us. The salmon are just, hey,
Yeah.
made some beautiful kids. We're out of here, right? I mean,
well, it is extraordinary that they, the salmon are born. They go downstream. They live in the ocean, and then something says, okay, now we go upstream, and to do that, and to give birth simply to eggs, and then they die. That's an extraordinary cycle. As extraordinary as a fly that lives for 12 hours.
What am I talking about? Every morning I have a bagel and smoked salmon. So I mean, it's the whole cycle is.
You're part of it.
Yeah, I'm part of that. I'm part of that whole cycle. Now, you're aware of how, obviously, you're aware of how inanimate objects contain the presence of those who have passed, etc. And in the case of a group of set of glasses, you presensed. You personified the glasses, and you sensed your mother's. They sensed the absence of your mother. I mean, how did this hit you? I mean, you were just looking through the glasses, and you were just suddenly this association.
Well, let's see. That poem began as the sense of absence. It began because when you're 16 and your mother dies, you take over the domestic tasks like washing dishes and so on. And then in the poem, in writing of the poem, I was... so we just heard some thunder there.
All right. Well, that's just a prop we have.
Okay. I was sort of stuck, because the I in the poem was mourning this lack of the presence of the mother, and then looking at the poem, I returned to the glasses and thought, well, okay, there's something here that the glasses, there's some way the glasses can function. It probably wasn't that conscious, but it certainly was, okay, this is where the poem wants to go. If the I, get out of it, maybe the poem can do something.
So you'll never force a poem?
No.
Yeah.
No, you can't.
I know you can't.
You know that.
I know, it has to flow. But there are people who do. I mean, how about if you had to write a poem for an occasion?
Oh, please, no.
No bar mitzvahs? You don't do any bar mitzvahs?
No. I mean, for example, I think I wrote a poem, Well, I wrote a poem for a friend because I love that friend.
Yeah.
You know, that's really what has to. I would be no good as poet laureate of England who had
Yeah.
to write for the Queen. It wouldn't work.
It wouldn't
Not for
work.
me. It works for some, but not
Yeah,
for
some
me.
can do it.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, obviously, the great production values in this book, the Slate Roof Press, and
I feel very lucky. That book won their chapbook contest.
okay,
And so as part of the, like Alice James Press, it's a collective, so you become a part of the press for 3 years, and it's been a wonderful collegial experience.
this is more than a chapbook, isn't it? Because it has the perfect binding.
This is due to Ed Rayer of Swamp Press. He's a book designer, master printer, and he, although it is a hand-sewn book, he has designed that folded cover so that it does have a spine, which is important for its presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that spine makes all the difference in some cases.
Yes, it can.
It really does.
It can.
Now, I was going to ask you, you've done work with the elderly and high school students, and now you're telling me that poetry goes together, can help with loss and understanding loss. Tell me about your experience.
Well, the most moving experience, actually, I had the opportunity to give a seminar at the Somerville Hospital to a group.
No longer here, is it?
No. Well, it's now at, what is it,
An
Cambridge
emergency
Health
room.
Alliance or
Yeah.
something.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a self-selected group of people, nurses and other health professionals who worked obviously in situations where death was extremely common, as in any hospital. And there were about 15 people there who worked in all aspects, from the COPD ward to the emergency room to the cancer ward. And I was reading from the anthology you mentioned, Kiss Me Goodnight, because there are extraordinary poems there about women coming to terms with the early death of their mothers, and from a variety of causes. And the way people responded with not only their experiences in the hospital, but a woman whose husband had died, another whose mother had recently died, someone in the emergency room who attended a man who was dying without any family. And yet, as we discussed this and used poetry to look at certain facets of the grieving process, of the unfairness of the illness process, of the coming to terms for a survivor, there were extraordinary gifts from the people themselves. So it's a way of actually allowing dialogue and both eliciting and echoing what others have felt in a grief situation.
Okay. And you like teaching high school students as well?
That was actually through a grant from the Somerville Arts Council. Okay. I was a fellow literature fellow, and so I taught a class at the...
You're a literature lady, not a fellow.
Okay, true.
That's right. So anyway, you've got 15 minutes to read from your work.
Oh,
so
all right.
You know, plenty of great stuff here.
All right.
And so whatever you want.
Do you have any that you...
By the way, I didn't ask you, you're having a reading upcoming.
I do, out at the William Cullen Bryant Homestead in Western Massachusetts.
When's that?
It's July 7th. It's in the evening.
7?
Yeah,
7 or so.
About that. If you Google William Cullen Bryant, who, and apparently they have quite an active arts and also reading series out there. So I'm very glad to be reading out there.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll let it rip.
Okay. You mentioned
salmon. I love the salmon.
You mentioned salmon. Okay, we'll do salmon.
It's a long poem, but I like it.
It is a long poem, and you'll have to time me here. So let me know. You know.
Well, I don't think it's going to take 15 minutes.
So no, it won't. Okay.
Go ahead.
The salmon go all the way upstream.
Actually, look in the camera when you read.
Okay.
Yeah. Just look at
that camera.
Yeah.
All right. The salmon go all the way upstream. The fish gather in the cold ocean, breathe water, eat other fish. They in turn are eaten. What do they know? They know they are salmon and where they were born. They gather in the cold ocean, and when it is their turn to die, when it is their turn to return, they know what to do. They remember where they need to go, and they go. The female salmon stop roaming the ocean, eating other fish. They leave the endless deep and turn toward land to find the river mouth that spit them forth. They enter the mouth, go upriver. The female salmon travel together. The male salmon leave the cold ocean, the eating of other fish. They seek the river mouth that spit them forth from the land's constriction and enter. They go back, guided by the memory. They go to make the memory continue in their way. They go to make the salmon continue in the old way. They swim upriver, leap the falls, push between rocks, against water, to the shallows where they were born. They go to the heart of the land. They meet and agree. The female waves her body and lays her eggs and moves off. The male waves his body and sprays his seeds and moves off. Then the female and male salmon die. In the shallows, having given birth to eggs and seeds, a promise to their memories, they die. The salmon go all the way upstream. The salmon go all the way to death.
I really like how it's punctuated by the thunder. Yeah.
Well, we talked about this a little bit before the interview, and the extraordinary thing is, of course, that the salmon really go from the Pacific Ocean all the way up rivers into Idaho. I mean, that's quite a journey, and yet they remember it, and it is their only journey. They journey down and they journey back, and that's the end.
It.
Yeah. I'll read the one about the glasses. This, of course, is about my mother's death when I was 16, which is too early.
Wow.
And this is, it's called Looking into Her Death.
How old was she when she died?
She was 56.
It's young.
It's very young. After my mother's funeral, I begin looking into her death. I go home. Is it still home? It feels so, the carpet green and worn, the doors hollow and light. I go into the kitchen. I am 16 and thirsty. Is it all right to be thirsty? It must be. I open the kitchen cupboard. The glasses, stacked neatly, become luminous on the shelves. By opening the door, I shed light on their curves, their brittleness. They are so clear, I can see the dust caught on their transparent sides. Standing there, I realize they are waiting. The glasses do not know my mother is dead, so they wait for her hands to take them down, fill them with beer or juice or milk. Then her hands will wash them. Her hands will put them away. She is dead, I say softly. She is dead. Outside a bird calls. Her hands are gone. Suddenly I am afraid that the glasses will slip off the shelves and shatter, and I close the cupboard door quickly. Then, after a moment, open it again. I want them to slide toward me. Perhaps I'll catch them. Perhaps I'll let them smash. Nothing moves. The glasses are out of reach. I close the door. I open it. I close it. I open it. I wonder if I should read the title poem, perhaps.
Whatever you want.
There are 2 dream poems in this book, and this is where the title poem came from. I was describing a dream to a friend, and I said, there were these people talking, but I couldn't see them, and he said, oh, that's the dead. They're in the other room. So this book really is a book about grieving and loss, and how do we relate to that other room. He said, they are the dead, In the dream, I hear voices from the other room, so I walk into that living room, but they, a man in a dark business suit, listening to a woman in a blue dress and pumps, are just standing up from the sofa, turning away, plans made toward the doorway at the back, and they start toward the other room, where also voices, conversations. They're taking their papers and leaving the room I entered through another door. I never see their faces. The plans, and they are going. Should I? Yes, I'll follow. Unconcerned, they do not call or look back, might not even know I am. I never see it, the other room. I am anxious and go to the door that opens into an unlit hallway, and their backs spread like ink into the dim.
Beautiful.
Thank you. I like dream poems because this was only a very small fragment of the dream, but they expand for me as you write.
Do you think?
About
I don't know, how spiritual you are or whatever, but do you think that the dead visit us in our dreams in some ways?
Well, let me put it this way.
All right.
I think that what we take to be consciousness is a lot more permeable than we think. And what we have as memories, or what we have as engagement with the natural world or with the ancestors, may also be permeable. Certainly with the natural world.
What do you mean permeable?
That we can perceive more than we think we can perceive, and that we can receive more than we think we can receive. In Japan, for example, there's the concept of forest bathing, which means only that you go out into the forest in order to breathe the air that the trees are producing and to feel the calm that's in nature, and have it renew yourself and renew your own.
It's called forest breathing.
Forest bathing.
Bathing.
Actually. Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that an interesting concept? I wish now I had a nature poem to read. I'll have to think about the salmon here. The part of what this book tries to do is take a look at the grieving process and sorrow and try and find some relationship to it. There's not, you can't do away with sorrow, but you can. There's, I think it was Khalil Gibran said, the more sorrow has, the deeper sorrow has carved into your soul, the more joy you can contain.
Just as you can appreciate the light if there's darkness, right?
Yes, indeed.
Right,
yes,
yeah.
indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the other dream poem, and it begins the manuscript, and it is trying to figure out that relationship. In real life, they are dead. My mother and sisters wave from the window of the train. They smile, almost laughing, and nod at one another. They look out at me on the platform and wave again. The train goes, sounding just like a train. The clacking begins, the chrome lines blur, and this departing happiness stays with me like some treasure of the first time I knew, the first time I knew I was really alive among people and birds, the white lilies and white chrysanthemums. I think I might have time for one more. And
You got about 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll read this last poem. Seeing what's behind you later. Seeing what's behind you later. Sometimes you choose a road that's near the road you're on, to the left or the right, not a turning, but a crossroad. If you're walking, you don't stand there wondering. If you're driving, you don't check a map and idle the car, fumes graying the air. You just take that other road. You don't even have time to work out the joke about meeting yourself 2 days later at the same crossroads. There are no crows telling you secrets, no warning gallows. That time has passed. Not even the customary crossroads table, spread with fruit and bread to celebrate the harvest, should it be that time of year. All those things come later. You will look back at the road and say, it was a crossroad, and wasn't there a bird calling? Was I hungry then? Did I know the way? But now you don't say any of those things. You just go. It's a road, and you take it, as you would brush your hair before stepping out or eat an apple for breakfast. There go your feet, the wheels of the car, taking you where you are going to go. Keep going. Don't worry. When from farther down the road you look back, you will see the petroglyphs you missed the first time, the signs of those who have gone before. You will see there is an alphabet, and you will learn that new language, the one in which you will ask the questions. You are learning the language of your past. It's a table spread with fruit and bread. You eat. Now you can say, my feet moved under the bird's song. I was hungry, and I knew the way.
Thank you very much, Anna Warrock.
Thank you.